Hey everyone, welcome back to In the Chute. With me this morning is my esteemed colleague and oldest son, Kalen, and he's going to try to give me a subject that I have no idea what's going on and maybe try to stop me. We'll see what's going on. What is it, Kalen? What do you
All
got
right.
today?
As we've
Come on,
always
bring
said,
it on.
like, comment, subscribe, right? Well, we had comments recently, and
Oh,
they weren't necessarily beneficial. They're kind of a drag, but hey, that's okay. We'll take it because it brought up another idea. So thank you very much. We were talking. There was a recent video that went
well,
out
let's hear it.
about
Do we need to
well,
hear them?
no, we don't need to talk about the whole thing, but it brought
Okay.
out the idea of like horse terminology, right? Because you were analyzing a horse that you later trained, the horse with no name, which we found out his name
Oh, yeah.
was actually Boduk.
Well, a little humor there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it brought up another term that made me kind of formulate my idea box up here, and then we got some other things that I thought might go along with it. So we'll start with this. The person said you need to give qualifying information on what cold backed means to a horse. So I got that and about three or four other terms, and maybe I'll come up with some more. But what starting out is when it comes to horse terminology, and this is across the breeds, it's not, not gated horses, but it's all horses. What is cold backed when it comes to talking about horses, possibly horse training?
Well, when you're talking a cold-backed horse means it just hasn't been ridden for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's just that you're just jumping on them with no warm up, no evaluation of them, working them, using them, or just moving them around. uh Cold back doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the ambient temperature. It's about whether or not they've been saddled for a while, or like in sales, people make cold calls where they talk to somebody they've never talked to before. Well, a cold back horse is basically not had a saddle introduced to it for a while, so it's kind of just a term that, hey, be careful. This horse is cold backed. Okay, it means he hadn't been ridden for a bit. That's really all it amounts to. Uh, I think that day I did that, it was pretty cold out, and I was talking, I think, mainly about all of us.
You were, and that's why
Oh, okay.
I did provide clarifying comments afterwards. As like, the horse hadn't been ridden for a while, but it
Yeah.
was also extremely cold that day. And also, to much like any athlete, to make sure that
Right.
you're not going to hurt them. You don't just go outside in a cold morning and you just like you start doing sprints, right? You got to do warm-ups,
Right.
get your body ready to go. And that's what my
Oh,
reply was to that individual. But then another thing is, what does when it comes to horses, what does the terminology sound mean? We also just had another video released recently about you checking a horse for the Dunrovin Ranch, finding out if the horse was sound or not. So when somebody says sound for a horse and its abilities, what does that mean?
soundness means, is this animal free of any ailments? Are there potential leg problems where either injury that will make them go lame, they are lame, or some kind of a malady, even health wise? Is there a respiratory issue that this horse is prone to? Does he suffer from heaves? That's still, it's not necessarily a physical movement, and really it is, but it's of being of sound health. You hear the term a lot in legal terms of, say, wills and such. Is this person of sound mind? Same thing. It's just whether or not they are fully healthy, fully able to move and do what you need them to do without any kind of injury coming up that's an old injury, or a flaw in that animal that could be a potential injury that would be chronic, come and go. So that's really what soundness means.
Okay. And then like sticking with the body and conformation, making sure like I guess everything's sound as you just explained.
Mhm.
What does sway back mean when somebody says that horse has a sway back?
Sway back, you'll see, is caused from a number of different things. Could be just genetics from a long back, extremely long back, and it's really, think about a dachshund dog, how their back just sinks down, sometimes just kind of comes down because of the length of it, and typically that happens about right behind the shoulders on a horse. A lot of mares who have had many foals will start to break down, and it's like having a weight beneath that spine. Horses have been used sometimes too hard, too much can have a sway back. And many times age is a big deal. And some of them are worse than others. You can just see muscle tone starts to go, and that whole back body midsection starts to just come down. So instead of a horse having say a set of withers, and then it comes down slightly and then just straightens out up to the rump, you'll see a horse got withers, and then it'll come way down and then come kind of back up. It's just like the whole top line has just sunk down. That's what sway back is.
Almost like a parabola on a graph.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
You also talked about, taking care of the animal. So like soaring, what is soaring? What does it look like? How does soaring happen when it comes to horses?
Soaring is it's an insidious practice, I think, particularly in some of our gated breed Tennessee Walkers in the show ring. You will have them desiring an unnatural, really lifting of that front end, picking those front feet up way high. And they can achieve that with weighted boots, with chains on their pasterns, apply chemicals, put shoes on them where they're take the hoof foot down so low that every time they step on it, it hurts. I mean, there's some very, very cruel ways to do that. And there's some stuff that I've probably never heard of or know about that, does the same thing, and it tries to achieve that, what they think in that genre of horse show is desirable. And so it's just a matter of usually when it's called soaring, implies just that, making them sore, making them hurt, making it tender, so that they lift their feet up higher. And I think that ought to be done to the people that do that to horses.
Now, something that's less intentional, maybe it is intentional at times, but most of the time it's unintentional. How about saddle sores or saddle soaring? What's up with
Yeah,
that?
and that's not, I don't think, I've never seen that ever done intentionally. I can't even think of why, but usually from poor saddle fit. Maybe a horse that has got a different conformation to them than others that isn't quite fit the type of saddle or the saddle you use, or you could be creating, if you ever had a hat on or something on your head like a helmet that has had just a little spot in there and it feels like it gets hot, I call it a hot spot. It's same thing happens on a animal's back, and typically you'll see it on the withers, where the pressure is such that it stays there long enough and over enough time that it'll turn the hair white on that area of increased pressure, where that makes contact with the saddle blanket or with their withers or back, right in that particular spot. And sometimes it can be done over time. Sometimes it doesn't take long. You can do that. It's hard enough under, just a few short uses. That's really the saddle sore part. There's another ailment, and it really doesn't affect them unless it gets worse. And that's on younger horses whose spine has not yet completely closed the growth plates, is on the back of the saddle. And you'll see it particularly in some of your English type saddles, where the back of the saddle hits and touches the spine on the back, just ahead of the if this is the hind end on this side, just ahead of that, and that completely just causes a lump or a hump there on that spine, and it's causing more deposit of calcium and bone material on that in response to the contact, and it's called a hunter's bump. You'll see that a lot of times, or sometimes some of your eventing horses, ridden pretty young with a saddle that moves a lot. It's not uncommon. I don't see it so much in your Western horses because that saddle is a lot larger and creates
displaces the weight a little better.
Displacement of pressure. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have seen it, but it's not near as common. But
Interesting.
it doesn't seem to bother. But yeah, it didn't. Well, I've showed it to you just in passing. I think nothing that we've ever had, I don't believe, on any of our horses, because I mean, just the way we ride them and the equipment we use. But calcium buildup is calcium buildup, or like a bone spur, but it goes onto the process of the spine. So I don't know that it causes long-term. I've never seen any animal have a problem with it, but again, I don't see it all that often either. So, or late stages of it, I don't know. But you can definitely see a bump there. And I think once those growth plates are closed, they probably don't do that much more.
That makes sense. Two more terms. When you say a horse has bottom or doesn't have bottom, what does that mean? What is the bottom in terms of the horse?
Think of the bottom being like a gas tank. If they've got a lot of bottom to them, that means there's a long ways to go before you hit empty. And a lot of bottom just means they've got a lot of stamina. They just go and go and go. And so we just always referred to it as having a lot of bottom end, where they can just go and go and go, and they never run out of gas. Simple as that.
That's perfect. And then the last one, lead. And I'm not talking lead rope, but when you say a lead with a horse, what is lead with a horse? And this is probably more prevalent in, like you said earlier, eventing horses rather than Western horses, but it does apply to both.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's necessary for better balance, if nothing else. I mean, every horse picks a lead, and which that means is the same as you. When you start to take off or walk away from something, which foot do you push off with, and which arm, as you swing your arms, goes out? Well, your one that the leg that goes out furthest is your lead leg, or that's your lead, picking up your lead, whether it's a right lead or left lead. And horses will change leads and should change leads depending on whether they're in a right turn or a left turn. And you'll see as a matter of discipline in a lot of your dressage horses, your venters, things like that, they will have them doing flying lead changes, where one step is a lead in one leg, and then the next step they're just flying or in mid stride, picking themselves up and swapping legs, which is going into the front. Every horse should change leads. You should have them so that they're balanced, because they can corner. If you're going into a right turn, you don't want to be on a left lead or left leg forward trying to go into a right turn. You're going to be off balance, and you may be able to do that, but the tighter that turn is, the more off balance you're going to be, or the higher speed you're into it. So it's nothing more than picking a right or left foot on the front end particularly, and having that lead into whichever direction you're turning. Now, you also are going to have, when you pick a lead, or a horse picks a lead on the front, they should have a corresponding lead on the back as well, so that they're in sync. Otherwise, if you have what we call a horse cross firing, which is not uncommon on young horses that you're training that really haven't loped a lot with weight on their back, you're teaching them the same thing. You're teaching them to pick that lead up, that hind lead, because if they're on a right lead on the front and a left lead in the back, they're cross firing, and it's rough.
Yeah.
That is really rough. So it's just a matter of picking which side you turn with, and throwing that leg out there. Whether it's natural or you have to teach that, it's still, and most horses will pick their leads up. You'll watch them do that when they make turns.
Perfect. That's various horse terminology: cold back, sound, lead, sway back, soaring, saddle sores, and bottom. So with that, we will take this episode and put it out to pasture.